Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another episode of Trudge Report. This is a recovery-based podcast, but don't worry, if you're not sober or you're not ready to be sober, we talk about plenty of other things, including sports, trending topics, and a good bit of nonsense. My name is Sean and I am your host. I'm joined by my good friends and fellow trudgers. Please remember to listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Our videos will still be posted each week so you can watch episodes on YouTube and Facebook. But as always, please be sure to download on your listening platforms. Remember to like and subscribe on all social media outlets with the handle @TrudgeReportPod. We are brought to you by Stella Mix Podcast Management and our wonderful producer and editor, Miss Janine Stella. Tonight, gentlemen, I'll start with you, Greg. How are you tonight, sir?
Doing very well. Thank you very much. Coming off of a wonderful, lovely weekend and ready to get trudging.
Ready to get trudged. We're going to make that a new verb. Good stuff. Bill, good evening. Bill's back from the injured reserve, boys and girls. Welcome back,
Woo.
Bill.
Feels good to be back. Now, if only Corey would show up.
Corey's, we're not sure what's going on with him, but he'll be along shortly. We couldn't wait any longer.
Do you guys really not see me?
So my week's been good. Pretty much just rolled into the weekend and relaxed as well. Been doing a lot of studying, trying to get the final chapter finished out here, boys. But I'm ready to trudge as well.
Good stuff, Bill. We're glad that inflammation in your knee has gone down. You and Joel Embiid. So,
Yo. Stop it.
I'm sorry, guys. I can't hold it anymore. Corey, we decided we were going to pretend like we couldn't hear you or see you.
So stupid. We have
really funny.
We have a whole ass meeting about our format, and this is what you guys do?
You waltzed right into it, sir.
Don't be late, man.
I'm like checking my settings. Like, where the hell is my mic working? What's going on?
I almost cracked as soon as you said, you guys really can't hear me? I almost cracked up, but I kept it together. Hi, Corey.
Corey.
Good evening.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Everything okay in the household?
No.
No?
Oh, it's fine.
Fundamentally, all is well?
Yeah, everything's fine. Everything's good. My kids are awake, but they better not make a sound.
Oof.
Yeah.
That sounds like a challenge to me.
Yeah, well.
All right. How's your week, Corey? How was your weekend? How was your week? We all did a quick hello.
I know. I was here for it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh, my God. I'm good. Nothing to report.
How was your dinner on Saturday night?
What dinner?
Corey and I went to the Brazilian steakhouse, Texas de Brazil, down in Palm Beach Gardens.
Wasn't me.
What an experience. What an experience.
So was that your first time as well, Sean?
Yes.
All right. So
what an
I know
experience.
we just gave a very unfavorable report about a Brazilian steakhouse that may or may not also be named Texas de Brazil. However, I stand behind my first two times of going there, and my first time going there, I was blown away. It's such a sensory experience.
Unbelievable.
You don't know what, like, it's just, there's just meat everywhere. There's
Unreal.
meat on swords everywhere.
Yeah, that would appeal to you.
I love it.
I will say this. I do remember your story, and I think it's a chain, obviously, but it was, yeah. For anybody who's listening and doesn't know what it is, it's literally an all-you-can-eat. So first off, they have like the crazy expensive, phenomenal salad bar with so much more than salad.
Fancy
so
cheeses,
everything. They had potatoes au gratin, black beans and rice, different soups. There was a huge bowl of just bacon. Just a huge bowl of bacon, which was wonderful. Corey almost missed that because it was on the top shelf, but he found it
a little high up.
They have cheeses. They have like huge chunks of Pecorino Romano cheese, just unbelievable food. So that's part of it.
top notch.
All you can eat there, and then the meats. It's just like I don't even know how to explain it. They just have these guys. I don't even know what they're called. I feel like they're
called gauchos.
Gauchos. I don't think that's exactly the right word, but it sounds good enough.
No, that's actually the word.
Yeah, I would
Is it
trust
really?
Greg
I thought
on
a
this.
gaucho was something to do with a horse.
They're called gauchos.
Okay. Well,
G-A-U-C-H. Wait.
So they just come around and with all different
gaucho.
kinds of meat, from sausages to beef to pork to lamb to chicken. See, all different. I mean, there were like 5 different kinds of sirloin, all seasoned ways, flank steaks, just unbelievable. And it's just all you can eat. You have the little red and green card. You flip it over. If it's green, they just keep putting it on your plate. If you flip it back over to red, they halt. And it was it was something, man. It's not a good place for an alcoholic. I'll tell you that much. There's talking about it going to excess.
Here's the deal, Sean. Can you just let the world know that I did not tap out? That in fact, the guys in front of us were like the ones that were like, "You guys are monsters." I've never been called a monster in my life when it comes to food,
especially when it comes to eating.
Yeah, that's the thing. I eat like a bird most of the time.
And Corey is the slowest eater I've ever met in my entire life.
But you'd be proud of him. He kept up, dude. He was rocking and rolling.
I'm glad.
He was rocking and rolling. Bill, have you ever been to one?
Texting him.
Been to Hog Heaven.
Heaven's different.
Hog Heaven's a totally different animal.
What is Hog Heaven?
Hog Heaven. Well, Corey, that's a mountain story. We'll save that for the mountain.
It's a different story for a different time there, son.
We'll save that for the mountaintop. It was phenomenal. I don't need to go back for at least a calendar year, but it was phenomenal. We got dessert. The desserts were lovely. Shout out to Georgia, our wonderful server. Huh?
Did they? No, Texas Day Brazil.
Oh, she had a lot of hogs since the last time you seen her.
Yeah, she had.
Okay.
That's a different story. But
so they let you guys eat dessert at the table and did not mandatorily make you box it up and take it home?
No,
correct. They did not. They did not.
Right.
Buckers.
Yeah, it was a good experience. We went for a friend of ours.
The cheesecake was real good.
The creme brulee. I mean, it was all good. But anyways, anybody who's listening, if you've never been to a Brazilian steakhouse, go. It's a wonderful experience. Just the salad bar alone was completely top notch.
The lamb, Sean. I had no idea about lamb.
Corey had lamb for the first time.
So good.
Even if you're one of those weirdo vegans, you know what I'm saying? You can just go have the salad bar. You can just go there, have the salad bar, fill up on rice and beans as much as you want to. You know?
Yeah.
Yep. So
very good. That was
all right. So what's up?
That was the highlight of my week. So
it was fun.
Yeah.
All right, so real quick, everybody, we've been talking. As I said a few weeks ago, we're going to try to make some, not really changes to the Trudge Report, but just kind of, we had our big kind of annual review meeting recently, and we're trying to identify some spots that we could be better at this. And obviously, there's a learning curve, and we're going to continue to learn as this goes on. Thanks to Janine for all her help and support. All you guys, had some wonderful ideas, but we had our kind of annual review meeting last week, and we want to switch things up a little bit. We have the listeners have spoken for the most part, and I know this may not be a general consensus among every single of our thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of listeners, but it seems that the recovery segments are the more popular of the segments, simply because not everyone likes sports and not everyone is into power rankings or whatever deep dives on evil food companies and stuff like that, or the YSL Atlanta rap trials. But for the most part, everyone who's tuning into our show is either in recovery or around recovery or in some type of family recovery, and they have a vested interest. So we're going to actually start the show off, and we're going to see how this goes. And this may be a permanent thing. Maybe it won't. We're open to new ideas, but we're going to start our shows off from here on out, or at least for a while, with our recovery segment. And then whatever we get to on the back end in the second segment, we'll still have some legit second segments where we do deep dive research topics or power rankings, and definitely still have guests and stuff like that. But we're going to switch things up where we have been doing the recovery segments in the second half of the show. We're going to try to start doing them in the front half. And I know we got slightly sidetracked with Brazilian steakhouses, but we're going to give the next 30 minutes or so to the recovery segment, or however long it takes. We're just kind of let the flow. We're going to go with the flow. So with that being said, does anybody have anything they want to say real quick before we get going? Everybody good? Okay.
Good.
So with that being said, I'll kick it off. And I think the best way to do this is maybe in 2 separate conversations. So I want to read a couple things real quick, and then, we'll go from there. So with respect to its own affairs, each recovery group should be responsible to no other authority than its own conscience. but when its plans concern the welfare of neighboring recovery groups, those groups ought to be consulted, and no group or regional committee or any individual should ever take any action that might greatly affect that recovery group or other recovery groups as a whole, without conferring or meeting with those other recovery groups and, you know, making sure what they want to do isn't going to affect them or affect recovery as a whole in that specific area. So what does that really mean? The very short of it, the word autonomous or autonomy comes into play. The problem with sometimes this is that we are such good manipulators and con artists and idealists that we can kind of form any idea or that we have. Usually it's somebody else's idea. If we don't like it, we'll jump to be like, no, that could affect this or that could affect that. But we can kind of mold that to it's not a do whatever you want guideline. That's the main part. Autonomy does not mean you can do whatever you want. One of our downfalls in active addiction was selfishness and self-centeredness and doing exactly what we wanted when we wanted all the time with no regard for the expense of others' welfare or anything like that. So now that we are in recovery, and even though we take these individual practices very seriously, as a group, the group should take these practices seriously as well. So if they want to change something or do something radically different, it's best to have some kind of meeting or group conscience or vote to where everybody can talk about these things and get ideas out so that we can determine, whether we are or are not maybe affecting, other recovery groups or recovery as a whole. So I have a couple quick questions, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. And I'm not asking you guys these questions necessarily right this moment, but I want to read them just to get the kind of the creative, process flowing, and then we'll share on it a little bit. So do I insist that there's only a few right ways of doing things in recovery, or do I insist that my way is the right way of doing things in recovery? Does my group always consider the welfare of the rest of nearby groups? Do I put down other members' behavior when it's different from mine, or do I learn from it? Do I try to bear in mind that to outsiders who know that I'm in recovery, I may to some extent represent our entire beloved kind of fellowship? Like I may be the only example of recovery that someone has seen or is going to see, or whatever, or they might have, a bad taste in their mouth from other people they've met. So am I setting forth that good example? Am I willing to help a newcomer go to any length, his or her length, not just mine, to stay sober? And do I share my knowledge of recovery tools with other members who may not have heard from them? So on my list, I have Greg going next. So Greg, I will kick it over to you, and I can always jump back in if need be, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. And if you want me to repeat any of those questions, let me know.
Thanks, Sean. And I do think that a lot of this is certainly a learning curve, but I can speak from my experience, and the recovery group that I'm a part of is certainly we have monthly meetings after our group is over with. We all get together. If there's things within the group that need decided upon, if there's things within the group that need to go to a higher level within the structure of the groups themselves, in a larger area, we vote on those things. But it truly is a democratic process in that regard, and I think personally that's the best way that I can think of. We don't have a president or or somebody to tell us what to do. We have the experience of those who came before us. We have some guidelines and some structure that's set down from our group's, I guess, larger parent group, and we follow those accordingly. But yeah, we do our own thing in certain regards, and certainly how it affects the way that our group functions and the way that we carry our message to the people that need it, right? And that's always, at least you know, as it stands, that should be in the forefront of our minds and our hearts, and certainly in our discussions. But there have definitely been times where I've been headstrong in that. I have brought things to the group that I felt, with my own best intentions in heart, to, hey, I just want to help other drug addicts. I just want to help other alcoholics and people who are suffering. But I sometimes we get so dead set on an idea, and we think in our own heads so much about it, and this is exactly where I want to be, and what it ends up being is a big swing and a miss, right, when we bring it to the table. And because we were almost so blinded by the goodness of the idea, we didn't see how that really might affect the larger group as the whole. So like,
and because it was our idea, right? Like,
right, of course. So if it's my idea, it's mint, right? It's
got to be good.
It's got to be good. So that's why I think it's so important, and that's important for my personal recovery too. Like, group aside, that's why I have a mentor. That's why I have a group of brothers around that. Like, if I have some kind of big life event or something like that coming up, and maybe I'm not sure about it, or maybe I think that I'm seeing something one way, and this is the only way it could be because I know for a fact it's this way, and then I float that thing to one of my close personal friends, or one of my my brothers, my mentor, whatever, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't even see that entire side of it because I was so steadfast on what I was doing. So I think that's very, very important, obviously for the personal side of it, but certainly for the group as well. I do, we've talked a lot on this podcast before about how we're very critical of other people internally, right? And I'm no saint in that regard. I do my absolute best to try and quiet that voice down. I used to early on make that voice that was criticizing everybody else and judging everybody else, I'd make it loud and tell the guy next to me, or one of my buddies, and that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help me. It says a lot of poor things about me. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help my buddy, and it doesn't certainly help the person that I am judging either. So I certainly try to do my best to really rein that in, and look at that and check myself on it when it comes to what their behavior is. But I mean, at the end of the day, that is why we have what amounts to a group conscience. Is, yes, we can feel free to do our own thing in certain regards, but hopefully you've got a strong group of people who have a good footing and who are doing things the right way, and are staying recovered, and trying to live a good life. And they're there to everybody, kind of helps shepherd everybody else in that regard. So,
and that's a great point, Greg, is the group conscience point, because, and we've talked about this in a previous episode, but to your point, if you have, let's just call it 20 group members, right? Various lengths of sobriety, and somebody has an idea, and maybe it is or isn't the best idea in the world. Out of those 20 people, if everyone can get together and talk about it and share about it, share their thoughts, their fears, their whatever, you're almost always going to get to the right answer because of that, because you're willing to have a collective conversation. And when we vote, right, if a vote gets passed, we ask for a minority opinion, right? So if there's 20 people and 18 vote yes, but 2 vote no, and Corey's votes no, and we say, Corey, do you have a minority opinion? Do you want to share why you voted no? And if they share a minority opinion, we have to ask if anyone's vote changed because of that, and then revote. And more, like, maybe not more often than not, but a good amount of the time, that 1 or 2 person's minority opinion, when it's heartfelt and genuine, sometimes people's minds do change. And I think that's kind of the collective conscience, which is really the higher power speaking through each individual. So I think that's vastly important.
And I can certainly, like, one kind of what I was talking about earlier, like one thing kind of springs to mind from early on in my recovery, and I'm pretty sure I was in a group with you three boys, but when we had come down to a vote that we were going to as a group take copies of our literature into different treatment centers. We would go there to go speak to the clients there, and we were going to take some of our literature and make it available to them, right? And it ended up kind of, like I said, like a lot of that came from a good place. I said, hey, we're going to take 20 books of literature to this. And then it was brought up by another person. Well, that doesn't leave much in the way, for us, like to just kind of give freely to those people who come in our doors at this group and need it and maybe can't afford it. Because again, that literature is not free. It's not free to any of us. It's not crazy expensive. We're not talking like New York Times bestseller over here, but like it's not free. The money has to come from somewhere. So like where my good idea is like, I just want to help those people that are definitely just as sick and suffering, some of them, as the people that come through our doors. It's like, that treatment center makes a whole lot of money. And if they want to work with us to, help facilitate bringing their books in, or whatever the case may be, we can do that with them. But certainly let's save some for here for the reserve for us to be able to give it away freely if we need to. So.
Corey, I got you next on my list if you want to go.
Yeah, I'll go, Sean.
Thanks, Corey.
Does this mic sound okay?
Yes.
All right. I don't know if I have a whole lot here tonight, but the one question that you asked resonates with me, Sean, and it was, what was the first question you asked? Do you have it in front of you still?
I think so, because I think I have an interesting answer to this too. Do I insist that there are only a few right ways or one right way of doing things in recovery? That one?
Yes. Was there more to it?
There were just more questions, but that was it from that question. Does my group always consider the welfare of the rest of groups nearby? Do I put down other members' behavior when it's different from mine, or do I learn from it?
Let's get into some of this shit.
Yeah. I think we could have a whole segment, a whole topic on just one of these questions.
Corey's just going to run the rest of this episode, actually.
Yeah. Is that all in respect to... God, I feel like this got loud. Is that all in respect to this idea that we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Those are all questions. Some of the questions for other ones are similar, but yes, this is all for this topic, for this autonomy and, own conscious stuff.
So the first one you said again was, do I insist that there's one right way of doing things or something?
Or only a few right ways, yes.
Whenever you said that, like, that's one thing I could speak on to no one's surprise here, right? And the first thing that popped in my mind was, and Greg was a part of this too back in the day, we had formed a group, not necessarily like a traditional recovery group like we usually speak of, but we formed a group, a committee, to host a somewhat of a national drug convention of sorts, national drug recovery convention, and that's the best way I can put that. But and we did so with a bunch of other drug addicts, which in turn absolutely probably pissed every one of us off in different weeks of meeting. Because, you all have, like, we all had our vision of how things should be and whatever. I know I personally damn near lost a guy that I was attempting to mentor one night because his idea was not received well, and he was ready to go toe to toe with me about it, and I thought I was pretty diplomatic, but whatever. And I'm like, let's calm down. Thank God Brian Beatty was there, our buddy Brian, to diffuse the situation. But yeah, there was a lot of that though, and I was I can't say I wanted to throw hands with anybody or anything like that, but there were definitely some nights that we left those meetings pretty pissed off, all because it's like, well, that vote didn't that sucks. Like, why are we doing that? You know? And ultimately, I'm sure I talked to you, Sean, about it. At the very least, I bitched about it. And, you know, I remember our discussions basically, actually, kind of going back to a couple weeks ago, an idea we talked about like the group conscience prevailing, and you know, the sum of everybody's conscious and thoughts and whatever. That's what it was going to become.
Right.
And, you know, definitely wasn't my conference. It was our conference. And ultimately, I have positive memories about it, even after going through hell for a year and a half or whatever
Dude,
it was.
I can just remember, like, because a bulk of those meetings were at a very wealthy man's house, and he does have a beautiful home. However, we were not allowed in said home. We had to be outside, out back, and
like the dogs we are.
Those meetings, we got more mosquito bites than shit done. You know what I'm saying? For like a year, like, because nobody could agree on anything. Man. It was.
Is that the one? Is that the one that I ultimately eventually spoke at, Corey?
You did. You did.
Yeah.
When our friend Derek was trying to cut me off after like 5 minutes.
Well, Derek, I'm not afraid to say it because I say it with love, but Derek was 99% of my problems that entire year. Just, I mean, he knows, but
God bless him.
Yeah, dude. I mean, wild. It was like the ultimate, like, experience of letting go and, you know, or attempting to let go.
I'd do it all over again.
Yeah, dude. It was fun.
A huge learning experience too.
Yes, absolutely. It was fun. And you know what the thing is that's even funny is that, like, the same thing would happen. We would still get together, share different ideas, probably walk away pissed off a few times, but ultimately it was a positive experience. The event went great, and not all my ideas went through, and not all of Greg's went through, and it was still magnificent. So, like, what's that say, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, that for whatever reason, that question brought me to that, because I often think things should go the way I think they should go.
Corey, let's put a pin in that just for a second. I want to get to Bill first and hear some of his thoughts on this, and then we can kind of circle back around and go some more of these questions. You're muted, Bill, whenever you get there you go.
Yeah, I think you guys covered a lot of it. I was thinking about, it's really the true meaning of democratic process, because it's not authoritarian. There's not one person in charge of really anything. And, you know, when I first came around that scene and was actually taking it serious, I came in and I was so serious. I thought all my ideas were the best ideas, and I needed to talk about them all the time and promote them. And over time, I kind of learned to just listen slowly but slowly, you know. And you know, it's funny because it's really not, the beauty of it in the paradox of it is that it's an evolutionary thing. It's never going to be, there is no real target, because it's a constantly evolving set of ideas.
Right.
And whether I think it's wrong or right that somebody talks about X, Y, and Z, you know, I don't know. You know, it's up to the group. And if you were to even try to reach out to one of the umbrellas over some of these things, they would tell you the same thing, that they don't really have any way to pin anything to anyone. I honestly don't think any of this would have worked, knowing the nature of addiction and the isms, with any other way, because, like I said, most of us came in with a whole host of bright ideas.
Right.
So it's kind of a paradox in itself. And it can teach you patience, or to find a new home group, you know, one of the two, depending on your tolerance. And that's both have happened to me. so you know, I've learned along the way. And today I like to hear from the newer people, and hopefully maybe mentor them on the side a little bit before, you know, I can kind of guide them around in my way
before they share all their bright ideas.
Yeah, so now I just subvert democracy, and I just start a little group on the side, and then we just run the votes.
There you go.
I get a bunch of real new guys and say, "Listen to this idea, guys. I need your vote."
That's exactly the way to
pull them on in there.
Hey, can somebody tag Elon Musk in this, please? I think this needs to be looked into.
We need to get Doge into this.
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting because the fact that something like that could work would never really. If you wrote that out on paper, it'd be like you're fucking crazy. That doesn't make any sense. So
I think what the great thing about it is it's the collective shared experience of the failures that make recovery so successful today, right? These only came about because early members of recovery failed miserably at, insisting that there's only one right way to do thing or whatever the case, whatever the case may be. So I think that's a good point on your end, Bill, is it's kind of cyclical. Like you said, there's not like an end goal in mind.
I think, on your point there is the only success was to make it changes the constant,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, or there is no correct,
and it's self-policing and self-sustaining, which I think is
people,
the beautiful of it.
Some people struggle with that. We have a good friend of ours who is, has a military background and stuff like that, who came into this and struggles immensely with that because there aren't any set rules. There's not the rigidity that you would have in other organizations. So, sometimes people struggle with that too. Like we all struggle with being told what to do, and then we get into a situation where we're not told what to do and we still struggle. So I mean, I don't know. But
and I think it's the first question, right? Do I insist that there's only a few right ways of doing things in recovery? So I think on the macro sense, in recovery in general, because there's many different avenues to recovery, right? The ones that the four of us have chosen is definitely not the only way to recovery and all that, but it's the way we've chosen. I think on the macro sense, there are, like, I don't insist. I think there are many ways to do this, and like more power to you if you can find sustainable, happy, genuine, sobriety or recovery in a different way than we are, right? Some of our literature says our hats are off to you if you do. I think in our little pocket of recovery, I got to be honest, and this is just, I do think that there are only, like, I don't want to say one. It's definitely not one right way to do it, but there is a more specific avenue, I will say, that we have all taken. Each one of our paths have obviously look a little different, and but we've ultimately gotten to a similar place, right? And we see a lot of in our circles of recovery, we see a lot of people fail that try to go too much against the grain or try to do it too much their own way or whatever it is, because our own ideas got us here, right? So, but on the macro,
let me ask you a question, Sean, about that. Just to pick you on it, pick your brain. So, would you say, in your opinion, that there's one way to do it, period, or there's just one way, because of the way we like? I think I know the answer, but there's one way to do it, period, or there's one way to do it for us or for you. You know what I mean?
I think maybe I try to make this point. I'll say this: I can't mentor anyone any differently than the way I was mentored. If that hopefully answers a little bit of the question. I do believe that there are multiple different ways to get sober and to achieve recovery. For what the four of us do, I think that does get a little narrower, that bridge. I'll say that. I do still think there are ultimately different ways or different methods, whatever you want to call it. But I do think in our little pocket, it does get a little narrower. But on the macro sense, there's many different ways. And I can only help the next sick and suffering person the same way I was helped, right? Because if I start getting off on, well, Bill, you need it this way, and Corey needs it this way, and then I'm now starting to play God or the director again, and that's no good for anyone.
The thing is, and it might be a whole, like, we could probably tangent off into a whole spectrum of topic here, but like, there kind of is one way for the variety of drug addict and alcoholic that we are. And really, truly, I think, and we've talked about it on the pod, the one way is a spiritual experience.
I would agree.
However, that's obtained is probably up for debate.
That's a good way. That's a good way to put it. I like that, Corey.
But the thing that sucks about that is that, in my opinion, we have kind of society battling against us a little bit, because where does everybody go after they get their 6 DUI or they have an overdose or whatever? They probably go into treatment, or at the very least, like some sort of counseling or whatnot, which is all a very good tool and stuff. But that alone, just speaking from experience, won't get or keep anybody sober that's like us. If they are maybe what literature would call like, I guess, a hard drug addict or a hard drinker or like problem drinker per se, you know, that stuff might work, and 1,000 other things might work too. So like, I feel like what I'm trying to say is I feel like society as a whole, or like general census of the population, does not push people like us towards a spiritual experience. I think that's obvious, right? Like right off the bat, like nobody's saying like, "Oh, you need God."
Right.
You know, it's only when you get around people like us that you start hearing that stuff, you know?
Inversely to that, like the same solution that you mentioned would work for the hard drinker, the moderate drinker. I think anyone's, it's a broad light in that direction where it would really help anybody, even normal, you know, people with no problem. Anyone could benefit from that.
Yeah. Finding God's not going to hurt anyone. Is that what you're saying?
Bill,
that's a
there
good
you go. A lot less words.
There
you go.
Bill and I used to be around this lady from time to time who would just give people this green smoothie drink. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
amino acids, right?
Amino acids. That's what it was. Amino acids and kale and carrots in a smoothie, you know? So
anybody's sober.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I don't question it as much anymore. I used to get all fired up about it. I used to believe that the way that I was mentored and the way that I was taught and the groups that I was in, that was it. That was the be all end all. And it isn't. There are other ways in court.
But it's
like
pretty
Corey
damn
said,
good though. So no,
but it is pretty damn good. And like I am always, when I get posed that question, or I try not to, but when I get into the argument with somebody, or at least a heated debate about it, I leave it simply as, this is what I did, and here we are, you know, a good many years later, and my life is better, and I'm still involved, and I'm on a podcast weekly talking about it, but this is what I did. And it has worked for me, and it's worked for a lot of other people that I've seen firsthand, and you know, millions over the course of, you know, the time it's been going. So
one of the things that to this topic that I find, when somebody comes and either asks me to mentor them or approaches that conversation with me, or I start talking with them about it, I will tell them very clearly, like, I only know one way to do this thing. I only know one way to get sober. I will not do this, to what I said earlier. I won't do this with you any differently than it was done with me. So if you're not going to buy into that, or you're not on board with that, then I'll be here for a support and your friend, but you might want to find another mentor. And I'll even say, I'll help you find another mentor, but like, this is the way I know how to do things. And it comes, you know, like, we're going to meet once a week, we're going to do, you know, and then obviously the method that I use, like, that's the only way that I know that's worked for me. So that's kind of what I tell people. And usually everyone in that moment's like, yeah, I'm good with it. And then, you know, the next few weeks are really telling. You see how really willing they are. But that brings me into this kind of next question. It's kind of an offshoot of it, but it says, am I willing to help a newcomer go to any length, his length, not mine, to stay sober? And I got to tell you, I might have to answer no to that question. Not all the time, because again, going back to what I just said, like, I didn't know what, if I met Papa Ron when I first got sober and was like, Papa Ron's my mentor for those listening that don't recognize the name. And he was like, hey, Sean, you're 13 days sober. You're obviously batshit crazy. What do you think you need to do to stay sober? I wouldn't be sober, right?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
There's like you juxtapose that with that early sobriety thinking, and I need that guidance. But I was looking at that and I was like, yeah, I might have to answer no to that question to an extent. I get what the question is framing, and I'll read it again. It says, am I willing to help a newcomer go to any length, his length, not mine, to stay sober? I might insert not just mine, right? But I don't know. I'll take
that one. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yesterday, for example, I get a call from somebody leaving detox, and they give me a call and they go, hey, you want to go to a meeting? And I'm like, I can't. I got things going on. I can't do it. Come on, you got to go to. Come on, man, you got to go to a meeting with me. I got to go to a meeting every day. I thought you were about meetings, this and that. And like, well, this is my schedule, So I encourage you to go to a meeting. However, let me know how it goes tomorrow. Well, 2:00 in the morning, I start getting calls, 911, this, that, and the other. Talk to the guy in the morning. He was drunk. So, no, I'm not willing to do whatever this guy tells me. I'll tell him what I'm willing to do for you. If you want to do more than 50% of the work, I will gladly share with you some of the things and some of my time, but that's about it. Because unfortunately, most people that need it don't get it, so they don't understand that. And even with the heavy drinker, you're rolling the dice every single time you get back out.
Yeah.
But like you said, Sean, I mean, you're 10 days or whatever, you have no clue. You don't even know why you got drunk or high in the first place, let alone what you're going to do to fix it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
Go ahead, Corey.
The question itself is a little confusing over here. Like, is it like Bill's saying, like, the guy's gonna do the work. That person, that newcomer, he's the one that's got to do it. We're gonna show him how to do it. I'll give him a ride to do some of it. You know what I mean? And we know what the any lengths is. You got to. We talked about it in the first 13, 14 weeks of this podcast. You're gonna tell us about your grosser handicaps, like things that make you like that suck about you, essentially. We're going to learn to give those things to God. We're going to make amends for those things. That's probably where we lose the most people, right? I mean, I've balked at amends. Sean knows I balk at amends. I balk all the time, damn it.
I wouldn't pick him up until he started making amends.
He's a big balker, that fella.
Big balker, I am. And essentially, like prayer life, so to speak, and then you're going to help people. Like, you got to be willing to do those things.
Right.
And if I mean, I don't really breach that topic with people right away. But I don't also think it's a bad idea to either. Like, hey, you're going to be expected to do these things at some point. You know what I mean? I've heard of people doing that. I don't know. But they're doing the damn work, Sean. Not me. You hear me?
I heard you, Corey. I hear you loud and clear. I wrote that down.
Make my
It's
men
broach,
for me.
not breach.
I wrote that down.
Reach.
It's a tough day when Bill's correcting your vocabulary.
Yes.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while,
He's
boy.
in space
There
or
it
whatever
is.
the hell. Or
Do you have any thoughts on that, Greg?
Corey.
I do. I actually, and when I was reading this list of questions that you sent over, I kind of like breezed right over that one. But I think that's the best question out of the bunch, to be honest with you, because it is so layered, right? When I first, came into the recovery groups and was, shot out and, didn't know which way was up basically. And, asked another man to mentor me and show me how he did it. He broke it down for me, I think on the first time we ever met. And he's like, listen, dude, here's the deal. I'm here to help you get sober. I'm here to go through some of this literature and some of this stuff with you. And I'll walk with you on this road. I'm not going to walk ahead of you. I'm not going to walk behind you. I'm going to walk with you on this road together. But like, I'm not your banker. I'm not your taxi cab. I'm not your relationship counselor. I'm not your landlord. I'm not any of that. Right. And very much the same thing that I go through with guys that I mentor now too, is like, I find like if you say that from jump, it usually kind of weeds people out. Right. But the thing is with the any lengths thing and the his lengths, not mine, I do always kind of have to ask myself, especially when I'm getting a feeling a certain type of way or whatever. Corey mentioned it several times, but the willingness, right? Am I as willing to do the things I need to do today to stay sober and to help other people get sober and have that in the forefront of my mind? So do I retain that same willingness? And when the answer is no, like, my program of recovery is usually off, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I got to go do things for them and all those other things, like, like Bill was just saying, but it's not Bill's job to run out and go pick this guy up and take him to a recovery group. You know, that's not in his job description. You know,
Which he, like, if Bill had the time or was going to a meeting, I know he
Sure.
would, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To your point, he's not gonna have to drop everything. And you know what though? And sorry to cut you off, but just came to me. There are times that we would drop everything we're doing to go help the next sick. That's not necessarily one of them, right? Like, there's plenty of access to meetings. You know what I mean? And the guy's attitude, obviously, but like, there are times that we would drop absolutely everything to go help somebody. I can think of a fateful night at a condo on the beach years ago with the three of us going to help a few of our friends.
Just one of the same guys.
Man,
that was one of them was one of them was cooking fish, and the whole place stunk. But yes, you know, we can't, especially now that we have professional lives and families and busy schedules and other people counting on us in other avenues of our life. We can't just always drop everything to go coddle someone and take them to a meeting. There's plenty of meetings to go to and plenty of support. You know, call me afterward and let's talk about how the meeting was, kind of thing. So sorry.
And I will say, you know, just going along with that, I don't know if we ever want to tell that story on a pod. I don't know if it's the proper story to tell on the pod, but I will say this: for those people that know what happened in that condo, that's how I knew. And I knew already, you know, I had already been sober for a little chunk of time at that point, but that's how I really knew the program worked. Because somebody said something to Sean that was so egregious that I was about ready to beat the brakes off of somebody, and Sean was like, "No, dude, just chill out, just calm down." So that's how I knew that recovery was real and that it worked. Because boy, man, I was ready. But all that aside, I have to be willing to go to a certain length and meet somebody where he's at. Right. One thing that I do like to do with certain guys, and it's a very individualized thing, but like, there's an abridged version of our literature that's designed to help get people that really need it. And it historically in the beginning days of our recovery groups was used basically with everybody, right? Because you know, we all knew, like, these guys, if they don't get the help they need right now, they're going to go down the road and drink tonight or within the next couple days. So if I can use that with somebody to at least begin the process, speed things up a little bit. I'm not saying, I touch you on your forehead and you're healed of all this, you know what I'm saying? But like,
Ash Wednesday going on.
Exactly. But if we can speed that process up a little bit, because I can see that you're just itching to come unglued and come out of your skin, because I know what that's like, because I've been there before. We all have, right? So, if there's things that I can do to help meet him where he's at, absolutely, but I'm not going to change up what I do. It's like you said earlier, I was shown how to do this one way, and that's the one way I know that to pass it on. So.
And every single one of us on this show is, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill's coming up on 10 years. Corey, you got 10 this year, right? No, that's what I mean. You got 10 coming up this year.
Yep.
Greg, what are you coming up on?
I'll have 9 in May. 9.
So like, not too freaking bad, you know what I mean? And obviously there are other ways that it can be done, but for us down and out souls on this podcast, pretty damn good.
Probably the finest specimens of human.
You are. I actually used that line in a letter I had to write for someone today. Finest specimen is manhood as one could wish to meet.
Can we put in our intro over 40 years of recovery experience?
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Ooh.
That's a good thing. I do want to change that intro a little bit, just with the new year and stuff. Janine likes it. Stella Mix likes it. Guys, that was a good conversation. That was we went a lot deeper on that. Those questions really help. Like, we went a lot deeper on that than I thought we would, which we didn't even get to the second part of our recovery topic tonight, which we'll just save for another week, which is just as well, to be honest with you. Yeah. That was good stuff, man. Anybody got anything on the back end around the horn real quick? We got a few minutes left. Anybody watch the Oscars?
No.
Just the Adam.
No,
Sandler.
I did. I love that.
can't.
Did
I
you guys
can't.
see Linda McMahon as the education secretary now? I heard
Yes.
Stone Cold's going to be the
Goated.
Yes.
head
Is that
of
McMahon's
beer
wife?
distributor.
It
Yeah.
was
Or like,
till he fucking did what he did.
Here's
Oh yeah,
let-
they're divorced now, huh?
Can I
Yeah.
go on a quick rant actually to your point about the Oscars, Sean? And you guys know me. I'm a huge movie buff. I remember watching the Oscars as a kid, and it was a big deal and everything. And I haven't seen the movie or anything, but I guess this girl, Mikey Madison, won Best Actress last night,
or
and she
Nora,
for this movie,
Nora, which won Best
Nora.
Picture as well.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Apparently it's good. I haven't seen it. I know the gist of it, which is like kind of this generation's Pretty Woman without so much of the romantic comedy aspect of it.
A lot edgier. No comedy in that.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing. I have no problems with that. I love a good movie that's like a raw look at real life, and I love good acting performances. But dude, like your little 2 minutes that you get to say your speech and your thank you for your Oscar that's the time and a place to like, hey, I love acting, and I grew up, and I'm so inspired by Daniel Day-Lewis and Marlon Brando and what. That's your time for that. Hey, I want to thank God. I want to thank my family. I want to thank my wife. This is not the time to get up and be like, I just stand behind all the sex workers out there, and we love you so much, and you're people too, and of course you're people too. You know what I'm saying? Of course you are. And look, hey, whatever you want to do with your own body is completely up to you. But like, why are we this is ridiculous.
I mean, so
you know what I'm saying?
What did this
It's
person mean by stand behind sex workers?
The movie is about a sex worker that
it's about
so not
falls
literally
in love or gets rescued or neither of the two by a Russian oligarch's son.
Okay.
It's actually supposed to be a really good movie, but that's the gist of it.
Thought it was a very literal phrase.
And I tell you what, like, hey, like we've talked about this before. If you're selling pictures of your feet on OnlyFans and making a killing, making more than I am off of it, like
Finder.
Awesome. Like I'm no facetiousness here. I am happy for you, and I wish you all the best. If you really care about like the sex workers of this country, meaning like the girls who are living on the street homeless or out on the street or whatever, if you really care, maybe you should actually go do something about it and not just your little 2-minute Oscar speech. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My feet are too ugly.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I liked it. Conan O'Brien hosted. He did funny. He had a part with Adam Sandler, made a cameo, and it was funny. So I get it. There are a lot of those.
What can they do though? Can they be like a safe pimp or something? Like
No, but you know what I'm saying, man. It's like
I'll sign up for that.
I'll sign up.
I give my girls insurance.
Yeah. You get health insurance, dental, medical,
I got a case of baby powder back here.
Paid vacation.
gynecological.
No, all respect. All respect.
I think we probably should land the plane now that we're off on this tangent. Now, anybody got any comments they want to wrap up with?
Real quick, and I'm throwing this out there way ahead of time. I haven't even conversed with Corey about it, but maybe, just maybe, watch your YouTubes, watch your Facebook. We might have a little something coming out this week because we witnessed one of the greatest heel turns in the history of the wrestling business over the weekend, and it deserves to be talked about. It deserves it.
Yes, that's a good point. Stay tuned to your YouTube. Where else do we put videos out on? Facebook, I guess.
Facebook.
YouTube and Facebook. We're also going to have some extra bonus content, non-podcast related, just in video form, coming to you for March Madness over the next few weeks. We're probably going to bring Danny P back for something. As Greg just said, him and Corey and whoever else is brave enough to get on that with them, they're going to do some wrestling stuff. So for those who like our extra content that's not necessarily recovery related,
I'm going live from a detox.
What's that?
I'm going live from a detox.
So
Bill's going live
at.
from a detox. He's gonna do like an undercover boss kind of situation.
Undercover drug addict.
Yeah.
Where's
wanna
the
see-
Suboxone?
Yes, I want to see a
It's under
video.
the mattress, isn't it, boy?
That
You need
might
to
be a great
freaking out
idea,
in the med
side
line,
note.
dude. Freak out in the med line.
Stay tuned to all your watching platforms. We're definitely going to have some extra bonus content coming.
Let me see them cheeks, not them cheeks, the other cheeks, boy.
And with that, it's really time to go now. With that, shout out to our listeners. Please like, follow, and share on all socials at Trudge Report Pod. Email us, trudgereportpod@yahoo.com. Send in your mailbag requests for topics, questions, comments to any of these handles. Remember, we are all here if anyone wants to talk about recovery and our experiences as sex workers, or if you're struggling with some form of addiction. Thank you again to Janine and Stella Mix Podcast Management. Good night, God bless, and may you trudge the road of happy destiny. See you all next week.